All right, Trenelle, are we ready to get going? We've got a bunch of people joined in. We appreciate everyone hopping on today to discuss some putting the pieces together of cybersecurity, cyber insurance, and just kind of a couple different sides of the house. So for those that do not know me, my name is Jake Charen. I'm a risk architect at Lakeside Insurance, located just outside of Denver, Colorado. For those wondering what a risk architect is, it's a little bit of a different side of the house for insurance. So we work directly with clients, but rather than just helping put insurance policies in place, we help design different types of insurance programs based on you or your client or whomever it may be, and really have different conversations about risk, looking at contracts and cybersecurity specifically, to really help our partner clients. And then we've got Trenelle Lyiscott of Cytellix. And Trenelle, I'll let you give a little intro about yourself, and then we can get today underway.
Thanks. That's so awesome, Jake. Thanks for the introduction. So I am Trenelle Lyiscott with Cytellix Corporation. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So first of all, welcome to that. It is October, so I want to make sure I make that note. But what we do here at Cytellix, we are an awesome. We built together a platform that brings together all the governance, risk, and compliance for a client to understand where you are in your compliance journey, when your risk journey, and then more importantly, continue on and extending that to detection and response, right, in real time, and making sure you always have eyes and ears on what's going on. So Jake and I thought this is a great topic to bring these two together because they go hand in hand, I would say, Jake, for sure. And we're going to get into that here in our talk. So excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, absolutely. And today it makes presentations a lot better when everybody asks questions and tries to kind of discuss some certain things that are going on that Trenelle and I are presenting. So if you have any questions, please feel to throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. We're going to be doing some kind of polling questions throughout, as well as we'd like to learn a little bit about everybody else. And then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Yes. So I'll go ahead and kick off for us, Jake. So let's just talk about, the basics of cybersecurity, right? And I always like to share this, no matter, I know we have a lot of owners on here. We have some MSPs on here, IT consultants. I mean, it kind of spreads the gamut here, which is great to see all of you all. We're listening to all of you guys. But let's talk about what the problems are, right? Of course, a couple things here to note is there's increased threats and vulnerabilities. I think we can all agree that that is a very real thing. I think we all are seeing the heightened problems going on in our digital world. But with that, it's because a lot of things are happening. So cyber talent shortage, of course, is a big thing. The cost of security tools, right? Especially as a small and medium business, how can you afford the tools necessary to protect your investments, protect your intellectual property? It's not an easy task to take on, right? And we know that as well. But the biggest part of what I want to share today is the regulatory and board compliance, right? That now has come down the line saying companies that want to work together and do things together, whether you're a third layer, second layer, it really doesn't matter. There's increased pressure there to really comply now, right? And I think that's really why Jake and I thought this is a great conversation to have, because you want to be protecting your company proactively. And insurance and cybersecurity, it's way more cheaper on the proactive side of it. We all know that, right? And you really need to start getting to know, what are my risks and what's the truth behind my organization? And you really don't know that unless you have, in essence, partners like ourselves to really help you along that journey. So I just want to start off with that part there. Now, some of the cybersecurity risks. I mean, this is a question I get often. What should I be concerned with? What are things that I should be doing as an owner, as a business consultant, IT consultant? What are things to pay attention to? If any of us are watching any part of the news, we see these all day and all night, right? Ransomware attacks, that's a very, very common one. I always like to share with our business executives that, BEC, I know it's an acronym, but business email compromise. We're doing a lot of traveling now. I know a lot of us are at conferences and such. Our devices are going with us. We're in airports. We're in, coffee shops, meeting with folks. The business email compromise is something that is very important to pay attention to and realize how and figure out ways to better prepare yourself to protect yourself against those type of compromises. Cloud-based systems. I think everyone is trying to make that big jump of, I don't want anything on-prem anymore. Let's move everything to the cloud. The cloud has its own risks too, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that too. Work from home systems. Majority of you all on this call here today, I'm sure you guys are taking it from your home office or a coffee shop, or maybe a remote office that your team has now leased. But work from home systems is another problem that's causing a lot of vulnerabilities in an environment. And as I mentioned, the talent shortage, right? I mean, to be able to afford a cybersecurity person full time in your organization is not a cheap endeavor, right? And it's not even just the person, but also the tools and technologies that that person needs to manage. It takes quite a bit of skill to do that. So those are some of the risks that I just want to kind of highlight today to just kind of kick off this conversation with you all here. But what do you do? I always like to share, I know cybersecurity sometimes can be a little daunting. Jake and I, of course, we enjoy talking about it, but it's not something that most folks like to talk about, which is fine. But there are steps you can take to really start to put the pieces together. Again, our play on puzzle pieces today, right? And the first piece of that is to find a reputable service provider. Now, if we think about our businesses right now, we're all doing things with bringing in third-party vendors to support different efforts, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales consultants, whether it's, different pieces of the puzzle there for your business. That same methodology should be applied for your third-party providers for your cybersecurity. Now, a few reasons in terms of why to do that. They have access to enterprise solutions, which is what you want in your environment. But the truth is, the cost of those, if you go direct to a lot of these providers, is really overwhelming, to be quite honest. So they have access to that for a fraction of the cost. And then you want an unbiased team of resources managing your cybersecurity and your threats. Why I always say is because as a student, if I got to grade my own papers, I would always give myself an A, right? And when you have a third party resource doing that, they're going to be unbiased and really look at what are the problems going on and give you the truth, right? And that's really what we want to get to, is the truth of what's going on in our environments. And they're always looking at the ongoing threats and trends. As I always mention to all of my partners, you do what you do very well, whatever industry you're in. But cybersecurity third parties are focused on looking at what is going on, because the threats are changing. Every day, sometimes every hour, there's something going on. So you want to pulse on that in real time. And then more importantly here is being able to respond and recover quickly. I'm sure you all have experience, whether you have experienced a cyber hack or breach or threat, or someone who has as a business owner. Being able to respond and recover is really going to determine if your business survives or not in a lot of cases. And we want to make sure that we're helping you do that. And lastly, this is what they do, right? This is what they specialize in. So why not go to the specialists when it comes to this? And a couple quick stats here I'll share that I thought was pretty alarming, but it really kind of brings to light what we're talking about today, is that 46% of all data breaches are targeted at small businesses with 1,000 or fewer employees, right? So that takes up a bulk of our companies here, of course, here in the US. That I would say small, medium, a little bit of large side of them too, but that is a staggering stat to know and just be aware of. But more importantly, over the last 12 months, 61% of those businesses have experienced a cyber attack, right? And that's really where we're here to talk about how you can be proactive in that. So again, step one, outsource a reputable provider. That's definitely what you want to do first. Then jumping into step two, I am a big fan and big proponent of frameworks. Frameworks allow you to measure yourself against it's already been vetted, right? So again, when we took tests of students and such, we had a metric, A to F rating scale, similar concept with frameworks. But there are industry standards that require companies doing work in certain industries to comply with certain frameworks. If you're in certain industries that may not have a framework or have one they're pointing you to, there are great ones that are overarching that I would gladly share with you all. I think you guys will all get our contact information at the end of this chat here today. But some of the popular ones are NIST, NIST Cybersecurity Framework, ISO 27001. If you're doing work in the European Union, you have GDPR, HIPAA. I think we all go to doctors, or I at least hope so. So we have HIPAA regulations. Banking, FFIEC are just some of the few here I like to mention. But the reason why I like to highlight the frameworks, again, is because it allows you to standardize what's going on in your environment, have a measurement, but more importantly, visibility. Here I put, get to know your cybersecurity score. And I like to highlight that as being so important to understand where are you in the journey. Again, with our businesses, we know our ranking for sales numbers, marketing stats, who visits our website, our accounting, our accounts receivable. We know all those details, but knowing your cybersecurity score is just as important, right? And again, you want to be proactive in this, because the reactive side, as we'll share here in a bit, is expensive. So we want to help you save money on the front end of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And based off that, we're going to kind of ask a quick polling question for the audience. So I'm going to pop that up there. So if everyone can kind of answer this question, let us know kind of are you currently aware of what industry cyber framework that you need to follow? Is obviously something that's very important, and not many people are realizing it. So I'll give a few moments for people to put their answers in, and then we'll kind of be able to go through that.
Perfect.
All right, so we're about 50-50 right now. 2 yes, 2 no. See if we can get a few more answers and then we'll kind of keep moving on. But as Trenelle said, it's very important to be proactive rather than reactive because, especially for NIST, as you head into these cybersecurity frameworks, CMMC, if you're not doing these things now, it's not something that can happen overnight, like turning on multi-factor authentication. It's going to take many, many months of framework in order to build that. So it looks like a decent amount of our group knows the cyber framework to follow. I kind of
That's
hope
good.
so, because we do have a lot of cyber pros in here, but for those that don't, that's okay too. It's all right. That's why we're having this conversation, is so that we can all work together and see, okay, Trenelle, Jake, what are the steps that my firm should take in order to get to where we need to be? All right, so
Great.
we'll kind of move
Perfect.
on to the next one now.
So again, step one is outsource to a reputable provider. Step two is adopting a cyber framework, right? And then step three, let's talk about it. Step three is probably one of my favorites because it talks about getting going, right, on actually doing this stuff. So a few must-haves. First of all is a cyber risk assessment. Most companies have no idea where they are in terms of cyber risk. They don't know if they're good, not so good, and something in between. So getting an assessment done, and I'll kind of share that assessments are a point in time. It's not ongoing, it's a point in time. So it's really showing where is our company today against our risk, right? And then from there, it will be a plan created to make sure that you're fixing and remediating the problems of what are causing the risk in environment. Having a reliable data backup is another critical step. I've had, partners, clients call me saying, hey, prospective clients, I would say, call me saying, I got hacked, I got breached, but we have a backup. And then they found out the backup was on the same network as everything else. So that means it's all garbage at that point, right? There is no saving that. That backup is now vulnerable and useless. So again, having reliable data backups away from your standard network. Ongoing monitoring and security testing and training, again, it's something that you want to have ongoing monitoring, scanning, again, probing of your environment to make sure there's nothing sneaking in or something on the network that you don't know about. And that's just important for almost any framework you follow. They're going to have ongoing monitoring because, again, it's not point in time, it's ongoing. Cybersecurity is an ever-changing, ongoing type of process. And then Jake hinted on it, right? Of course, you can plug and play things like multi-factor authentication, but that's not it, right? That's a foundational step to have. And I always like to share, especially for my execs on the call, again, with the travel, with the multiple priorities we're managing, the different areas we're spending time in and taking our devices to, having multi-factor authentication kind of helps with that, right? Because you're able to have, in essence, the extra step in the event your device is lost or misplaced. There's an extra step to accessing, which again, you can be able to remote in and do some things to protect it. And then endpoint detection and response. Again, something that's very foundational. If there is something that is caught on the network and environment, being able to turn that device off, shut it off so nothing that device has or is doing is going to spread within the rest of your network is really important. And tabletop exercises, I always like to share that one because, and with a response plan, of course, but that is in essence, for those of us that grew up on the West Coast, earthquake drills, right? It's really that if this were to happen today, where do we go? What do we do? Fire drills, same exact concept, right? Same exact thing here is tabletop exercises. In the event your team woke up and they tried to log into their computers and nothing worked, what do you do? Who do you call? Do you have everything updated? Do you have a plan to respond to it? Do you know who you report to in the event something like that happens? Again, those type of run throughs and kind of dry runs are really important because it allows you to be prepared, right? And again, this whole conversation is around preparation because it's a lot cheaper, as I mentioned, to be prepared and proactive with cybersecurity and insurance, as Jake will get into in a second here, than to be reactive with it. And our whole goal, again, for this conversation is to help teach you all what are ways you guys can be implementing these proper processes and steps to reduce your risk, reduce your vulnerabilities, and again, protect your intellectual property, right? And that's really the important part. So I think, Jake, if I'm not mistaken, I think that may be the steps I wanted to share with the team here. So I'll pass along to Jake. I'm sure we have some more polling questions to do along the way, but feel free to send your questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Trenelle. And so based on that and kind of ending with Trenelle's information and what I'm going to be providing, I'm going to do another polling question too, because this plays on both sides of the house. So have you had a cybersecurity risk assessment done in the last 6 to 12 months? Everyone can answer in quickly. All right, we've got 5 answers. Let's try and get a few more so we can kind of discuss what that means. All right, so out of our 6 people that answered, it looks like 5 of us said yes, and then one person said no. So for a cybersecurity risk assessment, there are a couple different types of risk assessments, right? From Chanel's side of the house, they're going to be taking a score. They're going to be looking at the cybersecurity in full detail. Where from my side of the house, from the insurance perspective, we're going to be looking at it from a complete risk management perspective. So from a cybersecurity audit, we're going to ask, do you have cyber incident response plans in place? Does everybody at your firm know where to go if there's a breach, especially when the owners are going to be out of the office and you're a small company? And things like employee trainings. Are you doing those things often? What type of measures are you taking, again, to be proactive rather than reactive? Do you know what your state's regulations are if there's a breach going on? So here in Colorado, we recently had the Colorado Privacy Act put in place effective of January 1st, 2023. So here in Colorado, if you're storing 500 Coloradans personally identifiable information and you have a breach, you have a duty to report it to the Attorney General. And then not only do you have to report it to the Attorney General, but you need to then notify every single person that's been breached in a certain way and fill out a form for that. So making sure that you are aware, and like Trenelle touched on before, are you doing work in Europe? Do you have to play into the GDPR framework? Are you doing work in Illinois? Are you storing biometric information? Because Illinois has very strict biometric laws. So we look at things from a lot of different risk perspectives rather than, hey, let's just talk about insurance. Let's look at your biggest property. Let's look at your biggest auto. I like to look at things in more of that intangible asset. So that'll kind of jump into navigating this scary world of cyber insurance. So to kind of start, I'm going to be discussing, do you have a cyber insurance policy? And if yes, have you gone through it in detail with your agent? Because understanding coverages are very, very crucial. And one thing that I'm seeing is that people don't really understand that the devil is in the detail with these policies. So there's a tiny little wording that I see in many policies, and you either have reimbursement wording or you have pay on behalf of wording. And what the difference of that means that if my cyber insurance policy has reimbursement wording, that means that I actually have to go out if I have ransomware and negotiate the Bitcoin amount that I'm going to have to pay out to this cyber criminal. Not only am I going to have to negotiate it, I'm then going to have to get the keys back to my servers to figure out how to decrypt my files that they encrypted, and then also make sure that none of that information could have been breached on the dark web or sold elsewhere. So again, the devil's in the detail. Having these conversations rather than after a breach happens is extremely, extremely important. So I'm going to ask another quick polling question here. I know that everyone sees cyber insurance in the news. They see what it covers. They see what it doesn't cover too. And it does scare people. So I don't want people to continue to be scared of this coverage and really understand, okay, what is it? Why do I have it? And how's it actually going to help my company? All right, so it looks like we've got some good responses so far. Now it looks like everyone's taken the good path. We've got one person that doesn't have a cyber insurance policy, and again, that's okay for now, but is putting a risk management procedure in place, it really is not nearly as expensive as people think, as it was right around COVID when all these mass amounts of claims were happening, because we had workforces, similar to what Trenelle said, going from being in an office space to now they're working at Starbucks, now they're working at their house, they're in an airport, they're running around. So it's very common to kind of see that now post-COVID. And then one more question that I'll ask based off of that is, have you reviewed it with your insurance agent? And I'm not talking about a very in-depth, super long conversation, but do you truly understand what your policy covers and what it might not cover? And one thing that I'm constantly discussing with my partner clients and people that are brought to me prospectively, whether they have an insurance relationship, because everyone knows an insurance agent, or not, it's really understanding, do you know that your application that you complete is a part of the cyber insurance policy? Everything that you attest for on that application is what the underwriter has to review and go through in order to provide you with a quote. They can't come in and do a full cybersecurity assessment, which is why you have a team like Cytellix to help you put it in the right place. But they go off of your current policy and an application to review. So that's why there was a claim 2 years ago in Illinois for a large manufacturing company. Travelers Insurance declined the claim, and that led everyone to read the media saying cyber insurance is the worst. It's never going to cover my business. It's never going to protect me. Well, it will protect you as long as the information you provide is true and correct, rather than what this manufacturing firm did. They said yes to all questions about multi-factor authentication. Once a forensic team came in, provided an analysis, it turned out that, well, no, you actually don't have multi-factor authentication anywhere, not even on your Outlook. And that's just a quick checkbox on Outlook to get there. So everything on the application is a part of the policy. And just to put it into simpler terms of today's world, if you're driving your auto policy for your house, let's say that you've got a son or a daughter that just turned 16, you don't say that they got their license, you didn't add them properly to your policy, and now they run into a light pole. Well, is that claim technically going to be covered if you didn't tell your agent that you added your daughter or son onto your policy? So again, thinking about things in just very simpler terms, we need to be truthful, we need to be honest, and things will work as long as we're attesting for ourselves. So,
And I'm so happy, Jake, that you mentioned that, right? Like being honest and truthful, right? And making sure that what you see on these applications are true. And I think that's where you and I get to work a lot together, right? Is making sure that clients are not just checking boxes because
right,
cybersecurity breaches do not care about checking boxes, right? It's actually having the stuff implemented and actually spun up properly. So as you mentioned, the client, getting the client with Travelers, they may have bought two-factor authentication, but they never installed it. Well, that defeats the
right,
purpose
right.
of it, of what it's supposed to do. So I'm happy you share that with the team.
Absolutely. No, and you bring up a great point there, Trenelle, and that's kind of why we partnered together. And what you touched on earlier is something that I'm always talking about too. If I'm grading my own paper, if I'm going to tell you everything about my company, I probably think that we're the best in every category. But we need to look at it from a different lens and have somebody else come
Exactly.
in. And so that's why when we work on these risk assessments with our clients and we have them fill out a 20 questionnaire, not about insurance, but just about their risk profile in general, I need you to answer it truthfully, because if everything is a 10 out of 10, well, we're going to have to discuss why, and then maybe we're going to start unraveling, okay, what are some of those pain points? So again, we're going to continue on the topic of what can your business and clients do to be proactive rather than reactive. So all of these things are things that you're all hearing all the time: security awareness trainings, phishing campaigns, multi-factor authentication, cyber incident response plans. So risk management, again, is a very important piece, especially in the cybersecurity realm. And one thing that many companies don't realize, they say, well, Jake, my cyber insurance policy is so expensive, even though relatively it may not be based on what their revenue is, their personally identifiable information they're storing, the personal health information that they're storing as well, is that there's actually a lot of services that are included in these policies. You get security awareness training as a part of the policy. They'll help run phishing campaigns for you. If you need different multi-factor authentication resources, they work with this. Insurance is a risk, but they want to help you get into a better place, because the less claims that you and your company have, the more that these insurance companies are going to be able to survive. And it really is that teamwork mentality rather than, oh, I'm paying them so much money. It's, well, no, what are they helping you to do as a service rather than insurance is just a policy?
Points.
All right, so I'll ask one more question. and just to kind of see, are you discussing cyber insurance with your clients? I saw we have a decent amount of MSPs that are in here. I'm sure you get dragged into filling out those cyber applications all the time, and it might not be the most fun. And one thing that I'm realizing too, so I apologize for not discussing, but both Cytellix and Lakeside are endorsed partners of the Managed Service Providers Association of America. We partner and to help our clients with these certain different risk profiles, and discussing cyber insurance with your clients is important. But one thing that I see a lot from my IT partners around Colorado and just around the US in general is they come to me and say, Jake, my client told me that if I can't answer yes to every single question, they can't get a quote. Well, if they couldn't answer yes to every question, then why would we even have insurance? What's the point of risk and risk adversity if you have to answer yes to every single question in order to get a quote? So these companies are taking a risk. They are going out on a limb sometimes, and they understand they might need to help you get to a better place. And putting a policy, cyber insurance policy there is a last line of defense in case any of these things that we've discussed don't work is extremely important. So again, there's a lot of different benefits of working with a cyber insurance professional, cybersecurity professional, and the teamwork of us too is really imperative and important. So some of these tabs here is just exactly what we've been talking about. The involved support and supportive management. Are they helping you? Do you know what your cyber status is? Are they constantly having conversations with you to say, are we doing phishing simulations? Well, Jake clicked a link that wasn't wrong, but thankfully it was in a phishing simulation. Let's teach him what he did incorrect so that next time when it's not his big brother looking over his shoulder, somebody's actually trying to be a cyber criminal, we can prevent that from happening. The exceptional safety and risk management culture, we'll say it again, and we'll probably keep beating it into your head, but being proactive with different safety policies, different procedures, different controls. Do you truly understand the compliancy that your firm has? And if not, that's okay. Let's have a conversation about it. We can't all be pros in every single space. And that's why we have to rely on our partners to say, hey, Trenelle, I need some help with cybersecurity. I've got a very large client. They're going to be heading into some work with federal government entities within the next 18 to 24 months. Can you just sit down with them and have a conversation so they understand where they need to be in the next few months, rather than if they don't do that, they could probably lose as a revenue stream? Focused training and orientation programs, like we touched on a little bit before. And then again, the claim experience, making sure you understand what's in your policy. We don't want to write policies, cyber insurance policies with reimbursement wording, because we're relying on our cyber insurance partners to do that. It's not just the insurance of the past. They are now data scientists. They have cyber engineers that are on staff that are actually able to come in as a forensic team and analyze, what was happening with your systems, and then also work with you to figure out, okay, how do we get you in a better place moving forward, and what can we do to continue to mitigate these risks?
Great stuff, Jake.
And like I kind of touched on before, and why Trenelle and I are hosting this together, where 5 to 10 years ago, an insurance professional and a cybersecurity pro were probably not even in the same room, whereas now it's so imperative to your business. So working together to provide robust policies built for your business, not just a cyber insurance policy, but different cybersecurity policies for your firm. Do you have things in your employee handbook that decide what Jake can't do on his phone while he's at work, or where he can use a laptop? Or if I go down to Mexico on vacation, that I need to notify somebody that I'm bringing my computer because I do need to send some emails out? We're all human. We all do these things every single day, but just being upfront, being proactive, and being truthful with these things are extremely important. And back to kind of Trenelle's side of the house, just ensuring you're in compliance with certain kind of compliancy frameworks, as well as the cyber insurance policy to kind of help any part of those applications. I need Trenelle as much as she needs me, because if any of these MSPs that have hundreds of clients, if one of your clients has a breach, even if it's going to be their fault, the first person they're going to point the finger to is, well, Cytellix, why didn't you protect us in X, Y, and Z way? Well, we're here to help. We want to help. And that's why we've been doing those employee trainings. That's why we've been building these frameworks for you all. This is a team environment, and it's not somewhere that we want to get to the end of the day where everyone's just pointing fingers saying, why didn't you do that? Or why didn't we do this? And then again, it just makes it easier for your business to have people that are working together because frankly, as a business owner, you don't want to have to be sitting there thinking about cybersecurity all the time. There's so many regulations, there's so many things changing constantly that we really just have to say, okay, who can I rely on to be that person? And again, it's just that easy button solution at the end of the day and using vendors that you know will actually help you and your firm in the long run.
So agree.
Yeah. And so
Awesome.
I'll let you kind of take it, Trenelle. I know we both just threw out a lot of information, a lot of different things that people might not always be thinking about on a daily basis. But again, it's important. So if anyone has any questions for Trenelle or I, please let us know. I'll see if there was anything that came in through the Q&A in the chat, and then we can go from there.
I know I have a question for you, Jake, that I know comes up often with even our clients and partners. Is having Cytellix and having solutions in place, how does that help to reduce their insurance costs, right? They on the proactive side. So if you can kind of share what that looks like when you guys are doing your evaluations to figure out how much you're going to, in essence, grant a client, how does that process work on the back end?
Yeah, absolutely, Trenelle. So as I'm having conversations with my underwriters, depending on the type of the client, are you construction? Are you manufacturing? Are you cybersecurity? Are you an attorney? And we have these conversations to say, okay, these are the pieces and these are the measures that they've been taking throughout the last 5 years. They have a great loss history. There's no claims. They're doing things constantly to update. You can see that they're doing patching. You can see that they have employee trainings and they're willing to continue to learn more and not just stay stagnant. So I think that's something important. And with that, we're really able to have awesome negotiation conversations and really lower rates and also get not just lowered rates, but increased coverages too. For fraudulent transfers of fund, that's a very large space in which claims happen. Most insurance companies are only willing to offer $100,000 in coverage, where depending on the client, I'm able to negotiate it up to 500,000 or even $1 million because I know the best interest of my client. And these underwriters trust me because of the work that we've done together throughout time. So that's a great question,
Very
Trenelle. I appreciate that. And it looks like we do kind of have a question for Cytellix when thinking about compliancy. What's a situation recently where somebody that you've worked with has maybe had kind of an aha moment saying, okay, Trenelle, I did not realize how long this compliancy is going to take or the sophistication. And what's kind of that success been for you all, Trenelle?
That's a great question. Something I always like to promote and really emphasize with all clients and partners. As you mentioned, Jake, it's not overnight. Getting into compliance is not an easy feat. If I was to do a rating of, let's say our last 100 clients on a scale from 1 to 100 in terms of cyber rating, most of them have started off at 20 or below. So
Wow.
that's a large feat to get to, 100 or even in the 90 range to feel like you're getting into the satisfactory side of the business, right? So I think I've had a client that I'll share. Maybe about a month ago, they got they won an RFP and they had notification that they had to prove their compliance within 30 days of being awarded that RFP. Now, you can't get into compliance in 30 days when you're under 20, right? So for them, slap
No,
on
you
their own
cannot.
risk. They did a lot of, I'm so sorry, Trenelle, you told us, you sure did tell us. And now they're in this process of trying to get it as close as possible in 6 months. So they're bringing in staff, they're doing all the things, spending a lot more money to get this in place so they don't lose the RFP award than if they were to just be proactive, right? So I typically see with our clients and partners, it takes anywhere from a year to 18 months typically to get into a place of maintenance with your cyber compliance and all the different process and procedures that go along with it. So again, it's not an easy feat at all when it comes to starting and kicking off.
No, it's not. I mean, 18 to 24 months. I know many people that tell me they don't have time to set up a 30-minute call. So doing 18 to 24 months, that's a lot of time that you're going to be putting on the table for people to really understand. But if you're working with federal entities or you need these compliancy pieces, that is your revenue stream. And revenue stream is your business at the end of the day. And without revenue, what's your company going to be able to continue, and how would you be able to continue investing in these different pieces? So I think that's an awesome point, Trenelle, and I think that's a great question. So
And I'll add
I
one other thing to that too, Jake. So even clients that are getting ready, I know a lot of folks, pandemic, post-pandemic, are trying to sell their businesses too, right? And say, okay, well, I want to get acquired or I want to merge, et cetera. Part of due diligence is going through all of your risk and risk assessments and vulnerabilities. So let's not mess your valuation too. We're working with some good PE firms and we're seeing that, right? That's part of the valuation process. So I always tell folks, depending on what you're looking to do with your company, again, the proactive side of it is the way to go because you'll look a lot better than your competitors by having these things in place.
Yeah, that is a really good point, Trenelle, and I'm glad that you bring that up. And you're right, as we kind of phase generations out of the working force, you can't just sell your firm to say, here you go, Trenelle, but everything's in a
No.
filing cabinet or everything sits on my server right here underneath my desk. And you say, well, I don't want to purchase a firm that doesn't have any of these cybersecurity measures in place or that
No.
aren't willing to do it. I think that's a key thing too. I'm not asking everybody to be as locked up as Fortune 500 companies, but just showing that you have the openness and the state of mind to say, yes, this is where we want to go. I think that that's definitely really important too.
Great.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate everyone joining on. We've got our contact information on the next slide. We will share a recording to everybody that joined on today and for those that signed up and were not able to make it. But I really appreciate everyone taking the time. You get to listen to Trenelle, who's such a pro in the cybersecurity space. I hope you're not as scared of cyber insurance anymore. And even if you are, let's just have kind of a conversation, grab a cup of coffee, or just say, I just want to talk and learn more. So again, really appreciate the time. Feel free to reach out to Trenelle or I with any questions via email or phone, and then we'll kind of go from there. I hope everyone has a fantastic day.
Thanks, Jake.